Hello everyone, it's Vince Well signing in again, and I'm gonna have to elaborate on what I'm doing right now. Uh, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but I previously did a live stream where I attempted to read every single, or at the very least, uh, one or two stories relating to Jeff the Killer that this gentleman, Kay Banning Kellum, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name, every single Jeff the Killer story that he has written. And this is the same guy who wrote Jeff the Killer 2015, which is the remake to the original Jeff the Killer story, which I believe came out in 2013. I do not care for his writing style. I do not care for his stories. And I basically rage quit halfway into it. Not even halfway into it. I wasn't even a quarter of the way done. And I felt bad for that. I felt bad because it was a live stream and I was trying my best to entertain the viewers with my pitiful attempts at wit and commentary. But and it doesn't help that uh, my modem was acting up and the live stream kept cutting in and out, and I had to basically wait for it, and that also kind of added to me not wanting to do it. So I felt bad, and I felt like I had cheated my viewers. So this is my way of trying to make up to them, or to you if you were happen to be in that live stream. I'm going to read the original story. I'm going to read every single creepypasta or Jeff the Killer related story that this man has written, and will try my best to maintain some level of professionalism and check my bias at the door, because I've went on record many times saying that a Jeff the Killer remake or Jeff the Killer in general does not warrant all this attention. It's become almost popular to make fun of Jeff the Killer because the general consensus basically is that it's a really bad story and a really bad character. But I don't think that it's improbable that good stories can arise from the concept. I just think it's really unlikely. And from what I've gleaned of this story many times, I've read it before. I tried to do a recording one time with MD Phantasm. I had the recording and he had to leave prematurely, so I couldn't use that one. And I just don't, I just don't think it's very good. Before we begin in full, I feel it's necessary to bring up that apparently this was done for a contest where the Creepypasta Wiki was planning on deleting Jeff the Killer because it didn't meet with the quality standards that they have, and there was a bit of a backlash towards that because they felt that he was a character that kind of helped solidify. It was basically one of the mascot characters of Creepypasta, for better or worse. It felt like it was almost sacrilege to part ways with such a story, despite its noticeable lack of quality. So, one user actually had the idea to come up with a contest to rewrite the story to kind of keep the character in while not having to keep the old story in on the site. And many people wrote their stories, and the one person won, that being Mr. Banning here. One of the problems that kind of arose from this was it turns out that it was his idea to come up with the contest, and he was also one of the judge and editors of the site, I think. And that was told to me. I don't know if the editor part is correct. I think I might be misquoting that from Slime Beast. Uh, and if anyone, again, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case. It's just what I've heard. I'm merely just recounting what I was told, and I've heard a few people basically verify that that was indeed the case, and was kind of a hubbub about that. Not to the extent that there normally would be in a creepypasta community, but there was some people that took some light umbrage with him basically being able to take you know claim to be basically being the winner when he might not have been a position where it would have been fair for him to be considered a winner. But that doesn't really say whether or not the story's bad or whether or not his story happened to be better than the better whether or not there were better stories than his. Maybe there were, maybe there won't. I'm mostly focused on what we have now. Maybe at some other point I'll take a look at those other stories, the other submissions, but for now we're going to focus purely on him and what he's written. Now I'm going to be doing this bit by bit, instead of trying to read it all the way through like I normally would. I'm going to try to get by because this comes in chapters, and I'm gonna probably have the I would say the cover of the quote unquote book on screen just to show you what it looks like. And I can't I can't explain why, but when people put out stuff like this within like I don't know, it just kind of it's like when fucking Sonic.exe the remake came out and it was in chapters and it was like 64 pages long. It just irritates me for some reason. You could say it's ambitious, but I just think it's kind of self-indulgent. Like brevity is the soul of wit. And I don't know. Like even stories that people kind of appreciate that actually have some merits, like what was it? I was about to call it Bearing, 1999. That story partially works because although it seems really long, people tend to forget that that story was basically written in increments where you could tune in every now and again to see if there was something added to it. And here is just one giant dump of story. But enough distractions. We're going to try to read chapter by chapter, so here we go. And I apologize in advance if I stutter a lot. I do that a lot. I don't know why I'm so bad at narrating and reading things out loud, but you've been warned. Manville. The day Jeffrey Woods and his family arrived at their new home, the sky was overcast and the weather was muggy. The gray sky seemed to punctuate his mood. Jeff was not thrilled to be there. Their new home was beautiful, though, a true example of his father's newfound success, but still it wasn't the home he'd known. A week after they'd settled in, Jeff and Leo woke up early. The sky was crisp and gorgeous. The sky was a crisp and gorgeous blue. And although the Louisiana heat was playing its usual cruel tricks, the brothers decided that a morning bike ride to explore the area would be just the right ticket to combat the slight pangs of homesickness that they've been experiencing over the last week. "I miss home," Leo blurted out as Jess was smearing salsa on the microwave burrito that would serve as his breakfast. "Me too, Leo. But okay, one thing, minor thing, and this is I'll openly admit right now, this is a complete nitpick, but there is an internal logic when it comes to dialogue. There is some kind of things that you need to bear in mind when writing characters, just a casual conversation between characters. And when people write like this, I just pick up on it, even though I'm fairly guilty of it. You could probably point to a number of instances in my own work where I've done this, where these two are talking, and I can't help but notice that he felt the need to just drop Leo's name in there. Like, "Me too, Leo." Like, it kind of comes off as clunky, and it's a very small and minor thing, and it's just one part of just a whole sentence. It just irks me every time. Like, I'm obsessed with good dialogue, and I'm obsessed with dialogue in general, and trying hard to make it come off as organic as possible. So I kind of pick up on things like that. Even, yeah, again, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal above banning. I'm just saying that that's something that people should try to work on. "But I guess this is home now, so we just have to sort of make the most of it." "I know, but all our friends and stuff are back in New Orleans. Remember that building we'd always sneak up on top of and watch the city lights come on? I miss that," Leo responded, sounding down. "Yeah, and ZM Video, and the owner knew us and would always let us rent R-rated movies without our parents, and he'd always hook us up with free video game rental if we got moved. I've got a few movies. Yeah, I missed that too. But Liu, we have to. Liu interrupted. I know, we have to make the most of this, but still, this place seems so fake, and Mom and Dad still treat us like we aren't even here. This is one of those things where you put focus on something that Banning has and I'm going based on what little I've gleaned from it from the other story that I happen to pervade, to read through. Uh, he has a weird tendency to put a weird amount of emphasis on certain aspects of a story that aren't really necessary, and like right here, to me, it would have made more sense to show him like the family transitioning into there so we can understand where their mindset is. This is basically them just saying how they feel, and you can't say how that feels. How you like I ruined that joke. You can't just have your characters say what they feel. That makes me feel angry. Um, like I don't know. Like I would say that it would make more. Like I said, it would be better if okay, yeah, we write about them coming in, them moving into the new neighborhood, them getting to know the area a bit, and then establishing that everything's kind of, it's kind of has the air of a, Stepford Wives X area where everything's fake and phony and kind of uncomfortable, and how people interact with one another and how out of place the boys are, because this just comes up as you know, that trope on TV tropes, like as already know, is like why are they just talking about this now? It kind of feels weird. Like it's been 2 weeks since they had moved there, and they're discussing it. I don't know. Like even then, like I could imagine them talking to a late, like someone that they met, and like recounting this, like oh we used to go to this, and basically describing why they miss those areas so much. But this comes off as clunky. Again, that's all I'm saying. Yep, they do. I was sort of hoping the new house would improve their mood, but what can we do? Liu had no answer. Jeff finished his breakfast, and the two boys left the house to mount their bikes and explore around a bit more. Every time I think of bikes now, I think of fucking Stranger Things. I need to watch the second season of that. I haven't done it yet. As it turned out, the subdivision they moved into was rather close to a cluster of stores and a small shopping center. Village Shopping Center was the name of a short row of businesses. Within it was a Pizza Hut, a Chinese restaurant, a tobacco store, a Sprint store, and what Jeff and Lee were most excited about, a video store. We have to get mom or dad to come down and open an account so we can rent movies, Leo mentioned as Jeff flipped a box over to read a description of a horror movie. Shit, you're right, Jeff snapped, feeling a bit of frustration at this thought. He knew that getting his parents to actually come down there and set up a membership would take forever, since their usual after-work routine was to go off into separate rooms until they got hungry enough to come out and speak. Kind of the way that you phrased that kind of sounded like the kids are fucking preparing the food for them. Excuse me, by the way. Jeff glanced over at the girl working behind the counter. Maybe I can go over there and sweet talk her into giving us accounts, he joked. Yeah, right, Jeff. One look at you and you'll probably ban us, Leo remarked back, a broad smile on his face. You doubt me, little man? Doubt you? The guy who kissed two girls and almost touched a boob? Never? Please, wait, sorry, I kind of put emphasis on the wrong words. Doubt you? The guy who's kissed two girls and almost touched a boob? Never. I think you should probably put a period instead of a comma there. Just saying. Please go over and lay on the charm. Whatever. I could have totally banged that girl, but her parents came home, and last time you told me that story, you said her parents were out of town. Her sister came home. Jeff became flustered while in the process of make yet another comeback when the girl behind the register removed all doubt by speaking to the boys herself. Hey, aren't those your bikes? The young woman pointing out towards the glass window. Okay, that was the first chapter, and I'm going to do this like chapter by chapter, so just so I kind of preserve my own sanity. This dialogue, man, this dialogue. I mentioned it before that This dialogue comes off as something I would see out of The fucking Visit. Anyone who's ever seen The Visit by M. Night Shyamalan knows exactly what I'm talking about. And to be, that's kind of harsh because it's nearly as cringy as the fucking kid freestyling and thinking he's cool. And, because you can tell that that's how M. Night Shyamalan thinks that kids talk. But yeah, it's like, it just comes off as really, really cringy. Like, I understand that they're trying to introduce some sort of chemistry between the two. I think a better way to do that is just a cat. I don't know, like, this to me doesn't really do that good of a job in setting up uh, how these two will interact in a very casual basis. Like what I suggested before, them coming in and moving into the describing the process of them moving in and the interacting with the neighborhood. Like you don't have to put that much emphasis on it. It could just be like a one-off little segment. Like the first chapter is devoted to that, and then you can time skip in the second chapter to them basically going to the video store, and then we can get a little bit of exposition via the dialogue. Not the dialogue, but a little bit of exposition. Not really exposition, but just kind of a well, yeah, an exposition, but exposition isn't necessarily the worst thing. It's just how it's executed, and I don't think it was executed well here. But what I'm basically trying to put forth is that it should come from the story rather than the dialogue itself, the descriptions from the narrator, so to speak, and talking about what they miss from their old home and how different things are. Like we get hints of what this neighborhood is in the first chapter. We get small little clues and kind of nudges towards a certain conclusion for us to reach, that it's a very shallow and high class area that the boys just don't fit in. And then in the second chapter you kind of solidify that, and I guess you could have them going over the store and whatnot. And it's a lot of what I often suggest in the series. When I ever critique a story, is basically, well, add more. And I understand that it's a very banal bit of criticism that I can offer, like just write more stuff. And it kind of contradicts a little bit of what I said before, where I think that the story is just way too long and it doesn't warrant its length. But it's not necessarily. Let me be clear. It's not necessarily the length of the story that bothers me. Like one of my favorite stories, creepypastas, on, in general, is Dogscape, and Dogscape is very, very long. And it's Dogscape, Psychosis, and Showers. They're very, very long stories, but those gradually ease you into a certain mood, and they build up atmosphere and tension, and they kind of get you. They basically are trying to set things up to where the scares kind of come in later. And here it's all just dumped there. Like they moved into this town and they're sad. And like right here, this first chapter, it's not really even that long. It's just right away we're jumped into they're going to right away, like, oh well, bullies are here already. Like it felt like it was short in the story too. Like I'm not gonna deny that the original story, but I don't know. That one, it kind of had an excuse because the general lack of quality kind of exempted from that particular criticism from really entering my mind. I dare say, and it's one of the most damning things I could possibly say towards this remake, I actually prefer the original opening, because Jeff moves in. It's a very casual thing where Jeff moves in, and Jeff and Leo move in, and establish a neighbor next door. Jeff kind of being not very fond of where he is right now, and having to basically be dragged along by his mom to a party that he doesn't want to go to, and that's it. And he gets small little pings, like little bits of where he has kind of that psychotic rage building up inside him, and it was cliche, and it was kind of dull, but it got to the point and it did it well enough. Here, it just like in that story, it felt not natural, but it worked for what it was, like the opening specifically. Here, it feels rushed, despite the fact that it's, I think objectively, I think I could safely say it's probably a lot longer now. The opening bit, where they move into the neighborhood, but it feels like we're just glossing over so much in comparison. And it's weird to say because I think it's object like this is I could say on a critical level probably a better story, from based on what happens and whatnot. It has a better understanding of story structure and characterization, or a very consistent characterization. But like the original story, as bad as it is, got past it stumbled past the first hurdle. This one trips over the first hurdle and barely gets up to its feet in time. It's a really bad start, but we'll see. Like we'll see as we go on whether or not it continues to kind of stay at this level of kind of stay at this level at this point. Will this get better? Will it get worse? Time will only tell. Until then, you all have a nice day. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that shit if you want to. I really don't mind. And take care. I think I said that twice.